There'll be a little disturbance.
Donald Trump is firm his tariffs will not cause a recession.
I don't see it at all.
But business and political leaders are not so sure.
There's an irrational man who's at the head of the world's largest economy, and he's willing, I guess, to sink the entire globe into a recession.
It's a self-made recession by one person.
And economists are watching closely as North American stock markets have been tumbling.
The stock market's typically a leading indicator, and that's not done very well in the last few days.
What are the chances that Canada is going to be in recession this year?
The chances of recession seem pretty high to me.
The technical definition of a recession is 2 quarters of negative growth in a country's GDP, but the C.D. Howe Institute takes more into account, including employment data, product orders, and building permits.
There's a lag to that data, so we very well could find out that that this first quarter was the beginning of a recession.
Canada exports roughly 70% of goods to the States, and each day 2.5 billion USD crosses the border. Put simply, the on-again, off-again tariffs are driving U.S. demand down while prices are going up.
There's going to be a readjustment period with supply chains, how connected we are, and so I think it's very likely if these tariffs are in place that we're headed for a period of turbulence here.
The fight over the word, whether or not we're in a recession or not, we're in a bit of a trouble spot right now regardless, and I think policymakers are going to have to try to figure out how to get out of this. What do they need to do?
We're talking, I think, rightfully and finally, quite frankly, about doing some things that we can control.
Economists say there are 3 areas we can control right away: monetary policy, like the additional interest rate cut we saw from the Bank of Canada today; immediate government policy, like expanding EI; and structural solutions, like removing provincial trade barriers and finding new international markets.
You're going to need all 3. Hopefully that will help with our dependence on our exports to the U.S.
How can we recession-proof ourselves in the middle of this economic moment?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, Canadians have been hit by 3 pretty significant negative economic shocks over the past 5 years.
Those 3 economic shocks: job losses from COVID, high prices with inflation, and high interest rates. And just like with them, the advice in a recession is to insulate your finances.
Right now, if you're in a relatively good position, reduce as much as possible your debt, because job opportunities may be less in the future. But it's still a tough time overall, independent of tariffs. We have consumers still not over the shock of high prices.
In the past 20 years, C.D. Howe says we've dealt with 2 recessions: the U.S. housing crash in 2008 and the start of the COVID pandemic, causing a recession that C.D. Howe says only lasted for March and April of 2020. So that was by May of 2020.
We were already back. Out of it.
Because we were besting a really terrible basement number.
And so you picked once it was a self-imposed shutdown, right? So what's different, this was worrying this time around, is that big bump is unlikely to happen unless the tariffs are sort of pulled away right away. If the tariffs are kind of permanent, yes, they might be one-off changes to the price level, but they're going to have knock-on effects. So I don't suspect we'll get that big rebound.
And with Trump saying he wants tariffs to be permanent, that rebound could take months before financial markets and trade markets rebound with it.